I was re-listening to the podcast just like today because I had some time at work to refill out the like spreadsheet, and I left off on the Balatro episode.
Nice.
And I was just like, damn, I gotta pick that game back up again. And then the next one was like Outer Wilds. I was like, God damn, I gotta play that one again.
Yeah, you really like that one too.
Yeah, I fucking love Outer Wilds.
Yeah,
there's so many games, man, that I just need to dig into. Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey everyone.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey folks.
And we are back as always to talk about some video games. I feel like we've all been running some pretty hectic schedules as of late, but squeezing in some video games and getting some some gaming in. I know we just wrapped up the Pursuing Pixels James Jam Game Gam, so I was kind of doing a lot of that stuff, but I've been doing a little gaming outside of that as well. But why don't we let John take the lead here with some of the stuff that you've been both polishing off and digging into?
Sure. So I have completed in the sense of getting to the end of the game as well as getting all of the achievements as of the start of this recording of the Gnorp Apologue, the idle game that I've been talking about over the past few episodes or so. And I really love the end game of this, which is an interesting, I think, outlier in the idle genre, maybe, where it typically what happens in an idle game is that, you know, you'll get to a point where you're not making the numbers go up as fast as you possibly could. But the Gnorp Apologue kind of has this push and pull factor to it, where you're trying to either generate more shards than you can collect or collect more than you're generating, depending on the situation and what you're trying to accomplish. And so there's a lot of times where you would get to like maybe the last out of 10 compression events, which is how they divide up like the stages in the game. And then you realize that the build that you've made using the skill tree is not going to get you past the final hump. And so there was a lot of times where like I would get to the either last or second to last one and I would be like, I just can't do it this one. And for a while I would be like, oh, well, like I've gained some more skill points. I'll just put more skills together and like I'll just do it on the next one. And then after I had done that a few times, I was like, no, I just I like mathematically can't do it with the setup I have. So then I actually had to go and look into the skill tree and be like, okay, what ones am I using? What ones are not actually helping me to get to like where I'm like trying to go? And I really liked that it had to, I don't know, have some strategy or like some thought put into it on the behalf of the player that like, you know, maybe you don't necessarily have in other idle games, but I was able to beat it in, I think the time that it clocked in at like 33 hours of gameplay. So like that's it's a relatively short idle game as well.
Especially because didn't you say you were like doing some stuff like and letting it run for a while to like let the numbers churn on certain things, or am I thinking of a different game?
Not as much as others, but I definitely was. Like some of them like you just let run in the background, but like this one I was still pretty actively doing it, and some of the skill tree stuff had like more active management on the player side of things. But overall, like I think it's a great like short, like concise idle game, as well as soon as I beat it, like there was a speed run mode where it gives you like 20 talent points, and I beat it with 18. So I was like, ooh, like that would be fun to like try different things and see different strategies and get it done and try to see if you can do it as quick as possible. But yeah, I think it's a solid game. I enjoyed my time with it. And also, I think I'm probably not going to open it ever again now that I've 100%ed it. But I had a really good time with it.
The fact that you were even like compelled to like not just like, quote unquote beat the game, or I don't know if you see credits or whatever if it gets to that point or anything, but like the fact that you're compelled to get all the achievements. I don't know if that's something you do with most games.
I don't at all.
Yeah, I never go for achievements. I actually turn off all the notifications. I don't even want to be bothered with achievements.
I don't mind the notifications, but that's not a driving force, I would say. Yeah.
It pulls me out of the gaming experience. Like it doesn't bother me if I'm playing like an arcadey game or something, but if I'm playing like Tunic or something,
any story based
just like
one,
is like
where it's
like just beat a boss and it's like, whoa, just like, I know I just beat the boss. I don't know. It just like kind of like ruins the mood of the game sometimes for me. And also when I'm like recording videos, I don't want like a bunch of notifications popping up and stuff too. So
yeah, absolutely.
I guess that's half the reason.
Mm-hmm. But in addition to the Gnorp Apologue, I've been playing another game, which is ULTRAKILL, the boomer shooter made by RC Hakita Patala. And it is a very hyper mobile, fast-paced first-person shooter done with, you can set the graphics to be smooth or like PS1 era graphics, and so of course I'm putting on the like really chunky pixelated textures and like low poly like beauty that the game is, and it has an excessive amount of blood and gore in like the very like Doom or Quake fashion. And it is also a ton of fun, and it's in early access. So we were talking a little bit before the episode started that the game is divided up into acts. And I think they currently have 2 acts out. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they're going to be out of early access once the 3rd act is finalized. And I have completed the 1st act, which also has a nice little ending where it prompts you to put in the 2nd disc and to start Act 2.
Nice.
But it is a challenging game. I played the first world on the like normal difficulty and was running into like a lot of difficulty like right off the bat.
Dang.
Learning the ins and outs of how, the different mechanics work. There's a slide mechanic that makes you move really fast. There's a like ground pound ish thing that helps you like make your descent end almost immediately, and so you're trying to navigate like how much the platforming versus how much
to like pinpoint your landing kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's very forgiving, and there is like an aim assist as well because you're moving around so much and so fast. So like it does kind of compensate for that, but at the same time like enemies hit hard and there's a lot of them. But I had made it through the first level, or I don't even know what the divisions are technically called. And then after that, I decided, you know what? I kind of want to just see what this game is. And if I am enjoying it, then I'll try it on a higher difficulty, like trying to get more stuff or have a more authentic experience, whatever. I don't know. But then I played it on harmless, which is the easiest mode. And, I'm mowing through enemies and like still dying based on, I've fallen off the map or, I still got overwhelmed because I wasn't paying attention on like where enemies were coming and they were swarming me. But it was a fun way to just kind of like play through the game and like see what it is with like the knowledge that, it's a game that's meant to be played many times over. It is a little bit of a score chaser. Yeah. Like you're getting a rank after every individual stage and like giving you an S rank or a D rank on individual sections of it, as well as there are secrets in there. So, I'm going around poking into different areas and like with the like luxury of having it on a mode that doesn't really punish me for that. And even then I was playing the like final boss of Act 1 on the easiest setting. I still died a ton. Like it was a really brutal game.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's like purposefully over the top and like excessively gory and violent, but like in a way that isn't by any means realistic with like the graphics and presentation of it.
Right.
It looks very much like a very early Doom game, and like, but plays a lot better than any of those games ever felt. But I liked it. I don't know if I'm going to be, like waiting with bated breath on when the next act is going to come out, or if I'm going to be, going through the higher difficulties. But I'm definitely going to keep playing it and unlock all the different weapon mods and different things, because there's a ton to play with, and it's a lot. All of it's really fun.
That's sweet. I like, it makes me wonder, are you playing it with just like Steam Deck with those controls as opposed to mouse and keyboard, which,
right.
typically Quake and those sort of super fast paced arena style FPS, they're all about that, just whipping the mouse around and things like that, right?
Yeah. I wonder if that would be a little bit easier for some of like the more like complex movement mechanics, because like some of them like involve you having to chain like a midair dash to like after a slide jump, and I got them, or like, and then there were wall jumps, but the wall jumps never really felt like perfect or like intuitive, but like I would be able to do them. And so like there's a lot of the like fast-paced mechanics, I'm sure like if I was really spending my time to like grind it out to be a speed run, or having played it, where I know where every enemy spawn is or where every secret is and know the optimal path through the level, I'm sure that it would just come with time. But it was still like fairly intuitive from the bat, even if like it was a little bit more complicated than maybe like it would take for me to get it on like my first playthrough. But that's kind of a tall ask anyway. Like I think that's a perfectly reasonable ask.
Yeah, especially for a fast-paced shooter like that.
Totally.
Not necessarily expecting to beat the level on my first try.
No. God, no. Doom would just crush me every time until I got used to it.
Yeah, those new ones, you got to be on your toes for sure.
Even the old one,
I've never played the old ones. Yeah,
like the original Doom on PC, some like shareware level version or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like, oh god, just getting destroyed. This is a lot harder than Wolfenstein 3D or whatever.
Yeah, and like so much of that, like especially with the original Doom, or in my case, the original Chex Quest. Like, you do kind of just have to
bought that on Switch.
Learn the level layout, and like just it does take repetition and getting that stuff down. Which like the other thing that came to mind as I was doing some of the as I was replaying levels in like going to an easier difficulty and trying to do them like really fast, was like I was reminded of Neon White and how that is like just a game explicitly around like speed running and hyper mobility. And man, Neon White is so good. Neon White feels so good. And like this, because it's not a like linear path per se, but it is kind of an arena shooter where you're trying to go around level. At some point you're trying to find blue and red skulls, which act as keys to unlock doors, so that you're backtracking. Whereas Neon White is just plugging straight forward or in like a straight line, or
almost like on a hallway path sort of vibe.
Or like there's only usually one path, and it may not be a straight line, but it will be like one direction that you're heading. So like that, I don't know, maybe it helps by having that forward momentum in terms of game design, level design. But I don't know. I got to replay Neon White. Oh, so many games.
I gotta get Neon White. That's on my list. On my high on my list of I just got to get the physical copy. Basically, I've decided that's the version I want. So I just got to pull the trigger on that. But I guess no pun intended between both the game you were just talking about and the game I'm about to talk about, Gun Rounds here. And actually, I'm going to talk about two games here. They're both kind of tied together, at least in the sense that they came out on Switch on the same day. I'm going to talk about Gun Rounds and Frogue. And I kind of have some general thoughts that kind of tie between both those. Like when Randall, when you were talking about the control stuff with ULTRAKILL, I feel like that was almost a perfect transition into this, because these are both games like Gun Rounds I know I've talked about on the podcast before, and I'm pretty sure I've talked about Frogue as well, and they were both games. I played them, or I actually Gun Rounds I played exclusively with mouse controls. I was going to say mouse and keyboard, but you don't even use any keyboard controls. You're just using mouse. I think there might be some keyboard like hotkeys if you want to use them on Gun Rounds, but you don't have to. But I was playing Frogue with a gamepad, but I was feeling like when I was playing that, I feel like this would work at least not necessarily better, but just more fluidly with mouse controls, just because you're clicking on like precise points that you want to be either moving to, or in Gun Rounds case, like where you want to be firing your weapon. But again, like I knew Frogue was coming out on Switch on the 27th of June, and I went on just on the Switch on the eShop to go pick it up. And for whatever reason, this is from, I'm going to kind of bounce between these two games. I was going to plan on kind of talking about one and then the other, but I don't know. I'll try to keep them separated. But with Frogue, I was like really anticipating this game, and I'm a big fan of the developer. They've made quite a few Wired Dream Studios is the names, and they made quite a few games in the past that have come out on Switch. So I kind of assumed Frogue would eventually come out. It released on Steam a few months back, but they've made Undergrave, which I've talked about on the podcast and really love that game. Raven's Hike, Red Ronin. I think I've talked about pretty much all of their games at this point on the podcast that I've played, and Frogue was probably my favorite one that I played so far up to this point. They were originally made it for like a game jam, and I think they didn't finish it for the game jam. They were like, I really like this idea and I want to keep working on it. So they like just kind of released it as like a free to play game, like not as part of the game jam, because they were, it took them too long to finish the game. And I really love that version. It was like this arcadey roguelike, and you play as this frog. It's like a side-on 2D platformer kind of vibe, but a roguelike and a turn-based game as well, like turn-based strategy situation, and kind of puzzly. And you're basically, you play as this frog that can like jump. It's got kind of like super hot flavor to it, and you move like, think like Dandara, if you're familiar with that game, where you can like, you can't actually run on the ground. You can only like jump to a platform that's in your like, angled radius or whatever that you can reach. So with Frogue, basically after you jump or take a turn, it's going to show you like highlighted points in a given room that you can land on and move to. Or you also, you play as this frog, or you have this sword and very similar to Undergrave. And this developer, a lot of their games are very similar, and like they bring like a similar gameplay mechanic and like just throw a new twist on it kind of. So in this game, similar to Undergrave, you have this sword that you can throw, and that can count as a turn, but then in a roguelike fashion, you're getting new upgrades. So like I just got one on my last run where throwing your sword doesn't count as taking your turn. So I can like throw my sword, hit an enemy, kill that enemy, and every enemy, to the best I can tell, is like if you hit them, they're dead. There's not like, you gotta, other than a boss, like you don't have to like hit an enemy multiple times. Nice. So it's just basically, if I have my sword in my hand, very similar to Undergrave, if I dash like through that enemy, I'm going to kill them.
Nice.
Or if I throw my sword into them, I'm going to kill them. Or if I throw my sword and it's just like hanging out in the ether, because it like, you only have a certain like radius or range that you can throw the sword. So like if I didn't reach an enemy, but it's sitting there, but then I'm going to dash, catch the sword, and then go through an enemy, I'll kill the enemy that way as well. But the thing that I really, this new version, like I really love that like kind of, post quote unquote game jam version of the game that they had released, this like kind of free to play version, and just really like the kind of like simple arcade. You basically just like cleared a room of enemies and then you moved on to the next room, where like now this new kind of full version of the game, which I hadn't played it since then, you're kind of like the root, like each biome in roguelike fashion is kind of stitched together similarly to like, I'm drawing a blank on the name of that game now. I can't think of it, but like almost like a mini Metroidvania, where you're like every room is like stitched together and you got to go through the doors and connect to them. And then you can teleport once you get further in and like, okay, I've gone through these rooms. Let me go back to that one room. I didn't go to the left over there. I didn't go south down there. But it just ends up being like a little bit more like tedious, the movement, even like some of the tweaks to the gameplay. Maybe I'm just not remembering it quite right, but like it feels like there's some jumps you should be able to make, like when you're on like, you can stick to any surface. So whether it's the ceiling, the side of a wall, you can stick anywhere. But like, so if I'm on, let's say, the side of a platform, and then it looks like I should be able to like essentially jump like straight down from that platform. The way they have it working is like you have to move to a like tile that's like one above the tile that you're currently on. So even though it should make sense that I should, if I'm clinging to a wall, I should just be able to like drop straight down.
Yeah.
And but I can't, because it's like that's technically not a tile above the like wall tile that I'm on. It's like thinking the wall is the ground. I don't know if I'm explaining that quite right, but like, and I just don't remember that. I felt like I was way more mobile in the original version of the game, where this new version, I feel like I have to like, if I want to get to one spot, I have to like do 3 moves to get there, where I used to be able to just like click. And maybe that was a design decision that like maybe if you get later into the runs and stuff like that, maybe it comes into play and like there's a reason why that decision was made. But to me, it does make the gameplay, especially playing on a gamepad where you can't just like click with the mouse on exactly the tile you want to jump to or exactly where you want to throw that sword. Like it is a little bit, I haven't played with the Joy-Cons yet, but with the Pro Controller, it feels like it's like a little bit imprecise. Like I'm definitely like, you really got to like dial, it's full 360 like radius controls, and then it like snaps to the closest tile that you're aiming to.
Okay.
I remember that
it's just a
kind of
little
being an
weird
issue with Dandara too, where like,
a little bit,
didn't feel as precise as I wanted to, and maybe if I was playing with like mouse and keyboard, it would be less.
Right.
Yeah, it was a little bit, I don't know, as for a game that like truly, like when I played that, the demo version, whatever you want to call that original version of the game, like I truly was like, this is one of my favorite games I've played since starting up pursuing Pixels. Like it's like top right up there with like, Die in the Dungeon and the Daniel Linson stuff and Cultisti stuff. Like I really was holding it in that high of a regard, where I don't know, this new version just isn't quite grabbing me as much. I did play another run and like got to the second biome just before we started recording here. And I was like, okay, it's getting the hooks in me a little bit more, but it just, I don't know, something about the like more simplistic version of that like arcadiness or whatever of that original version, I just liked a little bit more, which is no surprise. That does tend to be my cup of tea. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's maybe like, there was almost like that pressure to like, I gotta like make this into more of like a roguelike or roguelite experience, where like, I don't know, it could have just been an arcadey with like a little bit of randomness thrown in, and that would have worked better for me. But speaking of just being like an arcadey experience and kind of just roguelikey, with the randomness thrown into the mix, that's where Gun Rounds comes into play. But again, this is a game that I had played originally on PC, and like I mentioned at the top, it pretty much plays only with a mouse. And the reason why I love this game so much, this is another turn-based RPG, and it's just got a great 1-bit like presentation to it. It has a great soundtrack as well, just like slamming chiptunes, has a really great energy to it. But the reason it works so well with playing with a mouse is like essentially you're like playing on this like almost like, I think it was originally developed for like a mobile platform, if I'm not mistaken, or it's definitely made, with that Tate presentation, like vertical screen. And basically your character is on the bottom, basically stationary. And then it's, you start with your turn. You basically start with one, like your regular pistol, and then one extra weapon. And that extra weapon takes like more, energy or ammo to use than your pistol. I think just takes 1 or 2 to fire. And then basically the enemies are at the top of the screen, and they're kind of like moving around. Pretty almost like, it feels like a Pokemon battle sort of, but they're like kind of moving around on the screen, and then you have to actually like place where your cursor is and then click it. So you got to kind of like time it with their movements. Okay, they're moving in like this triangle pattern, I got to fire right at this time. Or like maybe I have a weapon that has a piercing, laser beam, so I want to shoot it when all of these enemies are lined up perfectly. And there's just like tons and tons of weapons where, fire like a snake pattern, or like it'll be a boomerang, but then you have to make sure you block the attack when it comes back to you, because it's going to hit you if you don't block it. And then that's really where the balance works with this game. And like, again, it played so great with just the mouse controls, and I'm assuming with touchscreen controls as well, because like you're basically picking the attack you want to do by clicking on it, or possibly using a hotkey. You can have up to 4 weapons at a time. So maybe I don't know if it was like this on, because I just clicked on the attack I wanted to use, but like maybe you could click like 1 through 4 to use the one you wanted to use, and then click where you want to fire. But then when it's the enemy's turn, they just go one by one. And I really love how like all the ones that aren't attacking kind of like fade out and get like real dithered with their pixels, and kind of get like almost blurred out. And then just the one is in focus, and then they do whatever attack they're going to do. And then you basically have a chance to block that attack. If you block it, you get ammo back. And if you don't block it, you take damage. And then you can like get upgrades that give you like a bubble shield, that will reactivate every time you reload. But again, if you're like blocking all the enemy attacks, like Paper Mario style, it's got all those action commands. And if you're really blocking every attack, you don't have to reload all that often. You might choose to do it to like activate that bubble shield if you have that power up or whatever. But you might not necessarily. But all that said, I'm playing this now on Switch, and I immediately, I went on to go buy Frogue because I knew it was coming out that day, and I looked at the new releases, and I was like, whoa, Gun Rounds is on Switch? I didn't know this was getting a port. And yeah, Blabber, the developer, even made a game for one of our game jams. So I just was so pumped to see that this was truly another game that I was like, this is among my favorite games that I've ever talked about on the podcast. And now this one, the Switch port is definitely growing on me, but it's definitely a game that's just not at all made to have gamepad controls. And they did a pretty good job of making it work. But one of the things that, for example, I don't like is they have every weapon. So you can have, again, up to 4 weapons. Each weapon is just mapped to one of the 4 face buttons on the controller. I would almost rather just be able to cycle through them with the D-pad and pick which one I want, or at least be able to pick between those 2 options. They do have an option where you can basically have it double tap, so you have to pick the weapon you want to use and then hit it again to use it, or you can okay, now that I've have kind of like Balatro, I know I got the motions down, now I'm going to crank up the speed because I know the motions, the flow of the game. And that's kind of, so I've upgraded it, or whatever you want to call it, to that mode where I'm just clicking it one time, and then I can still hit a cancel button to go back because I still have to aim. But then instead of aiming with a cursor like you would with the mouse, you have to now that I've confirmed my attack, then I hold down the R shoulder button or whatever, and then it gives me access to the cursor, and then I move it where I want to shoot or whatever, and then I release it to fire. So it's just everything takes us a little bit longer. And then the other thing I don't like about the fact that they assign all the weapons to the face buttons is because they assign it to you start out with 2 weapons, and then that second weapon, every time you pick up a new weapon, that second weapon now changes to a new face button when they add the second new one you get into the middle, so it changes. It's just I don't know, it's just it's a little too confusing. It's hard once you have all 4 weapons, then you kind of get into a groove of okay, these are the A does this, B does this, and whatever. But it's just to me, it would play a lot better if I could just cycle through them and select them. It wouldn't slow down the process at all for me. And I just I don't know, it's a situation where it's I wonder why they chose this, even to start a game, you press Y, and it's just it's just such weird, decision making where it's I don't know what, it's a really great port in every way, even all the extra features of rotating the screen to play in Tate mode, and I'm still enjoying it, but it's definitely not the if you can play Gun Rounds on PC, I definitely recommend, or mobile if it's available there as well, which I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure it is though. But I would say that's definitely the way to play this game. But for $10 on Switch, I'm definitely going to play this game more than I ever would have again. Not having to log on my PC because I'm just not typically firing that up and playing games all that often. Right. But so I'm happy to have it on Switch, and I'm super pumped for Blabber getting the game out on a console and everything like that. But it was a little bit disappointing where I was oh man, I'm 2 of my favorite games since we started things up here, coming out on the same day. What are the chances of that? And I was I was a little bit underwhelmed by the Switch version on both of them, unfortunately. Still recommend them both, and I'm looking forward to kind of sinking my teeth into and maybe turning the corner on both, so maybe I'll give an update down the road. But yeah, I don't know. Was a little bit disappointed, and just made me think there are some games, as much as I love playing with a gamepad, there are some games that just it's just made for playing a different way.
Oh yeah.
So
either through touch or through precise mouse input. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's just something about when you're having that really precise input. Yeah, having that mouse just makes such a huge difference. So
yeah. But yeah, why don't I kick it over to you here, Randall, to wrap things up?
Yeah. So another roguelike. Basically, I'm going to talk about Balatro.
Yeah.
Balatro. I didn't mean to bring that up earlier.
Balatro is still amazing. Breaking news this far in.
Heck yeah.
I feel like we only talked about it once.
We talked about it for an hour.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Might have made some save it for the cast material too, but yeah.
But, at that point, too, like, I had only been able to fire it up, like, a couple of times, I think, before we recorded. And I was, like, thinking back to where I was at that point. You guys were a bit further along than I was, when we talked about it last. I didn't know that I could skip blinds and, like, get the benefit of those. It just didn't occur to me to, like, move the cursor down there for another option. And then, like, I was doing a lot of accidentally, like, selling or discarding the things that I wanted to do, like, it's like
yeah, like kind of the same thing, like getting those button like prompts down and just like, oh, whoops, like I like when I was first playing that, I got to really think like hit the right button.
Yes.
Yeah. Play the hand, don't discard it.
Yeah. There's even weird bugs still that I'm just used to the quirks of now, where like you're in the shop and you'll see like cards or whatever for sale, but you can't do the L to like buy it and use it now. Like you have to like move your cursor over to another thing and then come back and select it again to get that option, which is just a little odd. I'm used to it now. It's fine, but it's just those sort of things, right? Those things you kind of get down through the reps and like, oh yes, this is the R button does this, the Y and X for this purpose, and then it becomes your go-to game instead of NBA 2K because it's in that beautiful handheld action on the Switch. Just like the Switch was gathering some dust, kind of generally speaking, for me comparatively in the last couple of years, and Balatro just like, oh no, there's that music again, there's that love. It's God.
I do love that song. I'm glad you just mentioned that music again, because it's kind of like, isn't it in like 5? It's in like a weird time signature.
I thought you said
time signature, but
I thought that you pointed out that it's in 2 different time signatures, so that when it switches, like it keeps it from getting stale.
I don't know. I just know it just like just like the way it like jumps the beat there. I don't even know if it's in a weird signature, but it's just like it has like one less measure or something, and it just always like catches you at like, oh, there comes that loop around. I don't know. It's just such a great tune.
Yeah, I just love the visual effects and stuff too. It's just like, oh God.
Yeah.
Just so well executed and just so well done. And like, yeah, just like when I played before, just, like I said before, like I didn't play poker or whatever, I was like, oh, poker's stupid because it was on ESPN2 or whatever. But like, so I now finally learned all the different hands and kind of like, what's a better hand than another hand? You don't just have to play 2 pair every time. There's other options. Like, so like, oh, this is what a flush means. It's all the same like suit. And I never like I took so long for my brain to just view that as a like easy option as compared to the rest of them for whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was saying when we talked about it before. I was like, you coming into this game having no poker knowledge is like, that's pretty tricky. Like I at least had that baseline. Like, okay, I kind of know the hands. Like I don't know it like by heart and like the the ratios of the probability or whatever, but I know like this is a good hand or whatever,
Yeah, like 13 is a weird like probability to internalize. Like that is when you're like, it's like, all right, how do I divide 52 in like these specific ways? And like, it takes like either having played it for years and years or like dedicating yourself and actually just learning it.
Very true. And on top of that, like the card counting aspect is just not something my brain ever wants to spend time on. But thankfully you got the triggers, the back triggers for that purpose, right? And you're like, oh, I have gathered 6 king cards or whatever over the course of this run. I guess I should like lean into that for this or that purpose for my...
I'm bound to draw one of these 7 5s I have.
Yeah.
Let me just discard all my good stuff to get there.
Yeah, it is nice to be able to reference that.
But yeah, I've unlocked a lot of decks. I think I've unlocked 8 of them post the first 5 that you get.
Nice.
So how many have you beaten the game with?
So I've completed successful runs on 12 of them so far. So
okay, buddy.
I didn't even know there were 12 decks. Heck yeah.
I went nuts. Yeah.
So you're doing like multiple chips now at this point?
What's that?
You're doing like multiple chip levels? Or like
This is a mechanic
that I've not engaged with because I've not beaten them.
Yeah, because you can change the like the run capability. Like a lot of the deck unlocks become like you need to play this on the harder version of a run, and for whatever reason, the yellow deck, which just gives you money to start with, was the one that I kind of caught fire with and just did that on. I think I'm on to like the 5th different difficulty option on that.
Damn.
Yeah, and it's God, man, it's so good. It's like the Jokers and like the roguelike runs. I think ultimately I love the like a roguelike run based game concept more than just about any other game concept. It just I don't know. It just itches my brain successfully. Just I love the random. You're gonna throw something at me, and I'm gonna have to figure something out and cobble together with what you give me. Sometimes I'm gonna be screwed, and that's fine because I can just start another run that quickly, and that's fine too, right? There's something so intoxicating about that combination.
I totally agree because it doesn't even matter. It doesn't have to be. It can be any kind of roguelike. Even if it's down well and it's just something as subtle as like a slightly different weapon upgrade or different perks and buffs and passive abilities. It's like you just got to lean into what you got, and you might not even have fun on that run because you got all the stuff you don't like, but you're just like, man, screw that stuff.
Make okay,
I gotta get this. I gotta get the upgrades I want. I need those Jokers. You know,
I'm doing that with Rogue Legacy 2 again because I bought it again on Steam after like originally getting it on Switch, and like starting from zero with a game that I had beaten where I was like, oh yeah, there is a lot of just, I haven't unlocked this character yet, or is like, this is the first time I'm doing them and they're like really under leveled. But then after a certain point, it's like, ooh, well now I've gotten them at a point where I'm like, I can actually have a loadout with them, but then their ability just completely shoehorns me in a direction that I otherwise wouldn't do. And it's like, it's great. I love the chaos of it, or like being forced to do something out of your comfort zone.
Exactly, and making the most of that, and then getting that snowball effect with something that you're not used to using is like, there's magic.
But also
there.
Then it starts getting so much more powerful than you could imagine, and you're like, oh, maybe this is the one.
Yes, like, oh, I see why people like this, and not just like the first or second type of whatever that I got used to and got good at because of that. Like, oh no, there's other options out there, and all of them are legitimate. Like, oh god,
I think it's also kind of nice too because like a game like Balatro or a card game like where like unlike Downwell, like you don't have to be thinking on your toes so much. You obviously got to be thinking, but like you can take your time literally as much time as you want. Like you don't have to like get a new upgrade and then just, oh shit, I got to change the way I'm playing. You can actually think about it.
Set the switch
it a little
down bit. Like just play a turn, play a round, whatever. Just set it down
watch
or
a little
idle
TV.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. Just like it totally fits the current high stress, very busy, not a lot of sleep lifestyle at the moment for whatever reason. Man, this game, it's going to be on the end of year list for me. It's a lock. It's a total lock.
Dang.
Have you guys gotten into spectral cards? Have you started?
I've come across them a couple times, but I haven't
use them optimally. Like I will use it, and then almost as soon as I use it, I'm like, I regret doing this. I shouldn't have opened one of these packs. This is gonna be. And then
what do they do again?
I use the least
I remember seeing the
reward
packs.
one. Like, they do like a lot of stuff. Like,
okay, so it'll be kind of like a one upgrade, but like one kind of negative thing sort of situation.
Change all cards that you see in your hand right now to a given suit or a given number or something.
I've done a couple
that.
of those. Then
they're like supercharged tarot cards. Like,
tarot
cards
that's a good way to
like,
put it. Yeah,
like you are managing what like the things are happening with the spectral cards. You're like, all right, this may.
I'm gonna roll the dice on this. Yeah,
I love that though. I love taking those like huge swings that might totally screw me over on a run that I've been playing for 20, 30, minutes or whatever. And
I'm too chicken shit to do that.
It depends. It definitely depends. But yeah, with a game like that, you could turn them all into like, face cards or something like that, or like up them all by one. And then, okay, I can turn like 3 more of these into face cards. And I have a Joker that's like, give you 10 multiplier if you have face cards. It's like you can really just lean into stuff. But there's so many different things you can lean into. Whereas like again, and I don't mean to keep going back to Downwell, but there's only 10 or 12 different weapons. You're not gonna. You basically kind of know what you're going to get thrown at you. Where
right.
A joke. Every run in Balatro is just completely different, no matter.
Yeah, because it's the ways that each one of those jokers and tarot cards and spectral cards play off of each other, or even like the other, probability changes right on a given card. It impacts both the joker's probability on 1 out of 2 face cards pays whatever when you play it successfully versus 2 out of 4 now chance for this glass card that has a 2x multiplayer might get destroyed. Like, so there's the yin yang of
like
that.
I
too.
need that card, but it's also it might ruin my run too.
Mm-hmm. I always put the glass cards on ones that I would otherwise discard.
Yeah,
if given the option, so that I'm incentivized to play them, and then if they break, then I'm good. But I think it was Glenn pointed out to me when I think we were playing when DJ was over, Kevin, that and by the way, we introduced it to DJ, and then the next day he's like, all right, I already
beat it with every
this
deck.
And I was like,
oh my good lord,
stop it. But
typical DJ fashion.
But Glenn pointed out to me that I hadn't realized that the jokers trigger in a certain left to right order every time, and I was like, good god, I have not been figuring this out to maximize the multiplier. So you put the addition ones first, and then you put the multiplier ones at the end. And I was like, good god, sense. I've been playing this like a chump.
I've been underutilizing that as well, now that you say that. And
but it's a thing that I hadn't even considered.
But I think in most cases it doesn't matter a ton. I've definitely had runs where it's no matter what order they're in, it doesn't matter with
if
the
addition,
I have.
if you're only having all addition or only all multiplier, then it doesn't matter. But if you have some that are addition and some that are multiplier, you want the multipliers at the end.
Are you sure? Because doesn't it just do that number on the left?
Mathematics works.
No, but doesn't it do the number? It does all the addition. The chips are addition, and then the multiplier is separate. So aren't they just 2 separate stats in and of themselves?
2 plus 10 is different than 2 plus 10 times 2.
It's they're in parentheses at a certain
PEMDAS.
point, right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, the order of operations.
Yeah.
But if you're only at the end of the day, it's the number. Wouldn't it just be the same 2 numbers either way, and you'd end up with the same thing, or no?
No.
I guess depending on what jokers you have, there's some pretty varied jokers. Yeah,
so some of them it doesn't matter at all.
Because the run that I won, I remember the final boss ante or whatever was all the jokers are upside down, and they got reshuffled. So I was I don't know what order they're in.
Yep.
But I was but it doesn't matter with the jokers I have. It's it makes no difference. I didn't have to worry about it really.
If they're just abilities, then but if they're adjusting the score, then that's something that you have to figure out where they are, or especially
I see what you're saying now.
Certain
and especially
boss blinds will cancel out jokers, and depending on where they're placed or what.
There are rare jokers.
So much
too,
strategy
that the rare joker will copy the joker to the right.
Yep.
Yes.
So then sometimes you want to shift which one that's copying at a given context too, because it might
depending on what you got. Yeah.
It might be when you start a blind, it gives you a tarot card. And now it's giving you 2, or it's giving you a multiplier on a certain thing. So shift it over to that one. And then there's you guys probably haven't made it this far, but there's hopefully this isn't a spoiler. There's also legendary jokers. I've
seen some of those, maybe.
Are those the ones that are named after famous clowns in history, Yorick?
I didn't realize that, but that could make sense. Yeah, and
there's Pagliacci, there's Yorick, there's a couple others.
There better be a bozo.
I don't know if those are legendary or if those are just other.
They should be legendary. That's great. That's very funny.
That is pretty funny.
No, and I got one that was disables all boss blinds. And I'm oh, shit. Well, that's a win. Because I have everything else that's already the
Holy
multipliers
shit.
where these other jokers are already like polychrome or like have the extra malts holograph on them, like, and then I had that one extra slot, and maybe I got one that was negative, so I got an additional slot on top of what you might normally get in a run, and you throw that on there, and instead of like the extra large blind, and it's like 300,000 points or 600,000 points, which is really hard to achieve unless you're a combination of, you know, well set up multipliers on both in your deck and the jokers, or, you know, you get this sort of opportunity to just slice it in half. And quality game.
I love it. I think the main testament to this game is just the fact of like how many people, like, you know, even again on that trip, like not only did we introduce it to DJ, but I think Glenn had already been playing it. Yeah, because he was set, but like his partner Becky has been playing it like crazy. Like just everyone seems like as soon as they play this game, and I don't think Glenn and Becky, neither of them are like poker fans. I wouldn't consider myself a poker fan. Like I'll play a game or two here and there, like for the hell of it, but like I'm not like, I don't really care about playing cards all that much. But I don't know. It's just a testament to, I don't know. I definitely got to go back to this one too.
Yeah, it's almost it's like poker is only one aspect of it to whatever degree that is. It's like you can you know change the circumstances, especially if you have enough tarot cards coming through all the time, or you might come through like a poker hand, but then you're changing one card over, and the left card matches the right card, so I can like get an extra multiplier or whatever. Like early on, it just. The ways that you can, just modify and just kind of create combinations is just so creative. It's
just modifying the rules of each run. It's cool.
Yeah. Balatro.
Heck yeah. Well, I got to go back and I am going to keep digging into FROGUE and Gun Rounds too, because I don't want to just leave those games with like that. Just I love those games, but like I wish I play the PC versions or play the original or whatever. So. Definitely going to keep chipping away at those, keep the roguelike stuff on Switch going, but I don't know, any more Balatro stuff before we wrap things up, or?
Not for now. We'll talk about it at the end of the year.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Nice. Well, yeah, I guess we can wrap up the video games chit-chat there for this week, guys, and as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com, pretty much everywhere else, and otherwise, we'll catch you next week, and until then, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I knew you were going to have surpassed me in Balatro,
I did
but
not
I was
see that
not
coming.
expecting that much.
I went nuts. I don't know. I must have been. I not even must have been. I've been pretty stressed out and tired and everything else lately.
Yeah.
There's been so much shit going on, and it's just like, oh, there you go. There's my little digital savior. This Switch that I can grab and just play for 10-minute sprints and put it back down. It's just, Dude, man, I got hooked.
Legitimately impressive of like internalizing game mechanics and like all of the contingencies involved.
Yeah,
Seriously, man.